I've converted up a few models to cover a couple different units in 40K. Today, I'm going to take a look at let you know how I went ahead and converted those into Warlords of Erehwon. So stay tuned. Alright, like I said before, I have a couple Exodite armies, actually 3, in 40K, and one was patterned after the Tyranids, one was patterned after the actual Eldar army. This is all before the 9th edition, so they use the old names. Fortunately, for me, the models that I took and I kind of made some tweaks around, it kind of feels like it fits Warlords of Erehwon really, really, really well. But there's no unit entry for these. So now these are Elven units, of course, because that's what my Exodites were. They're space elves. And so I'm going to take a look. We're going to look at 2 sets of models, but these all fit into basically one unit type. And today we're going to talk about what I call the Sundered Knights. Sundered Knights is I literally calling them the same thing I called them in one of the units in my 40K space. Striking. One of them used to stand in for striking scorpions, and I don't think striking scorpions would work well in the fantasy setting. It doesn't quite have the right elven feel, but Sundered Knights does, especially when you think back to our Dragon Riders video. In my old lore for 40K, the Sundered Knights are essentially the Dragon Riders who lost their mount, and in that lore, there's a psychic bond, and it's a big deal. And when the mount dies, it's a traumatic thing, and the elf isn't going to bond with another mount. Anyway, it's a whole sad story, and we just kind of can accept that same story for Worlds of Erehwon. It is our world after all, and or not. It's okay. But right now, Sundered Knights are essentially the elven cavalry on dinosaurs without their mount. And again, you can call it's like the knights list has footmen, retainers on horses, or foot retainers. You can kind of treat these the same way. So let's go ahead and take a look at the models and how the different stat lines come up. All right, now before we get into the whole unit, I want to give you a little background on how I used these before I wrote the unit. Given the Elven Lord comes with a sword and light armor, I have been proxying the Elven Lord with these models before, the Elven Lord on foot, because he's got a sword, and I treat this as a sword. And since you can give him spears for free, that's what the hand crossbow represented. So it's a strike value 1 exchange of missiles to the unit, and of course because of the particular armor they're wearing, as I'll talk about in a little bit, I assume they're spangly armor. So these used to be my Elven Lord, but now they're my Sundered Knights. Let's take a look. Alright, here's a bunch of models. I'm actually missing a couple. I don't know where they went to. You get 20, I forget how many you get in a box of Corsairs, Warhammers, Games Workshop's Warhammer Corsair set. That's what these are from. And I ended up making, there's 2 types here. One is these guys, and these have the sword and hand crossbow, and these guys have what looks like a glaive. I'm not calling it a glaive though. And it actually is, I'm going to treat it as a lance. And daggers. Matter of fact, some of them have swords and stabby things, just different types of weapon things. And what I've done is tried to create these, combine these into one, as if these guys had been dragon riders, but they've lost their mount, so they're basically they're fighting on foot. I wanted to kind of keep the feel from my 40K universe for my Exodites, so there's a story behind these. You don't have to adopt that at all to use it, but that will hopefully help you understand how I play the stats here and the different kind of weapon upgrades they've got. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so of course these are elves, right? they're going to have an Elven stat line. And since they have spangly armor, went ahead and give them the res 5 parentheses 8, right? Now, the thing is that I wanted to give them a variety of hand weapons, so I assume they all have a dagger, and whether it's modeled or not. Now, obviously, some are carrying a dagger, and then an Elven saber or a Sundered lance. Again, the difference is now that it allows you to change up the model a bit. Since the Elven saber, I misspoke in a different video on the Dragon Riders themselves, but the Elven saber itself is a +1 strength, strike value 0 weapon, because it's more of a slicing than a stabbing weapon, and doesn't have a lot of chop behind it. It's more of a saber, right? But the Sundered lance is the opposite. It's like a spear, so it has a strike value but no strength bonus, like a dagger. Strike value 1, no strength bonus. But this way, as you can see, I've got he's modeled with a sword and the Sundered lance. Here he's got the sword with a hand crossbow, which I'll get into in a minute. Here's the Sundered lance and the dagger. Essentially, he only has the strike value 1, no strength bonus. But all three of those weapons are the same cost. They're the same 4 points, as opposed to a regular sword, which is 4 or 5 points. So that's kind of how they're set up. The armor, obviously, is spangly armor because they have that look to them. You know, they're plates, carved or shaped chest plates, arm guards. The cloak itself is a dragonhide cloak. Now that comes with the models. Matter of fact, here's to turn them around. You can see a couple of them anyway. Different versions of the cloak. Everyone's the same. So they look like they've got dragon skin, right? Which is, so again, spangly-ish armor. That makes sense. Now, these guys are the baseline they've got. The big special ability is their frenzied charge, and here's the reason I gave it to them. And this is not, again, this is based on the lore I came up with for my models in the other universe. Being that they are, you know, they had the trauma of losing their mount, which is like their closest friend. It kind of, they snapped, let's put it that way. So now they're really, they're intent on exacting revenge, and if you will, almost, there's a couple ways to look at it. They want to die the glorious death to protect their elven kingdom. They want to avenge the death of their mount, all that kind of stuff. You can play it off any way you want. But that's essentially what's going on with them mentally. And for that reason, I gave them frenzied charge. So it could be something you want to do, maybe not. In my particular case, I think it made a lot of sense. You know, it made sense because the frenzied charge rule only gives you an extra attack the first round of combat if you charge, not only if you charge. So it's not superpowered. It's not like giving them like the berserk or anything, or what is another one, like almost like the whirling dervishes. I forget. There's one I gave the Moon Maidens. Hold on one second. That would be crazed psychotic. Yeah. That's what I gave them, frenzy charge and crazed psychotic. But no, not these guys. They're just frenzy charge. So they get one extra attack in the charge. Other than that, they're just single attacks. Pretty normal elf, other than that. But as far as the upgrades, I really only gave them a couple. Haughty Disdain, the hand crossbow, which essentially gives them a strike value 1 exchange of missiles attack. Hand crossbow was basically just +1 point, because all you're getting, you already have a strike value 1 on your dagger or your Sundered lance. All you're getting is the exchange of missiles value. So it's just 1 point upgrade. Now the other thing I gave, this is specific to my particular models. I have a certain weapon that it kind of struck me as a little different than the rest. And so let's take a quick look at that. Alright, there he is. So again, assume to have a dagger. But this, I created this model to represent a particular weapon in 40Ks. I wanted to do something a little different with him here. And so what I called this the Dragon's Talon. You can do what you want. I mean, you don't need to. Essentially, because this is it's almost like a pick or a warhammer. I gave it the weapon has a strength 1 bonus or +1 strength and 2 to its strike value. So it's a little bit more biting. So it's but only one model. Honestly, what I call the sergeant is the noble in this particular unit. So you can only give it to him. So this kind of breaks what you normally see in most units where you can apply a weapon upgrade to the entire unit. This is just to the sergeant. So I personally do like sergeants being armed a little differently sometimes. It adds flavor to an army unit. So I kind of did that with this particular entry. So I hope that gives you kind of a different idea of, if you've got one of those models within your unit that's kind of a little different, you can give a special, upgrade to the unit where it's just the sergeant has that, or just one model can take that upgrade, or whatever you want to do. But it's something you can do. Because it has 2 special rules or strike values in addition to whatever the base weapon is, it costs 2 points according to Rick's rubric. So that is my Sundered Knights list. Hope that gave you something to chew on, to give you some ideas of how you might incorporate some of these units you may have, models that don't fit right now, but you can come up with your own rules for them. So share, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.